Okay, so we're going to start from 12, and we're going to work our way back up to 1. So at number 12, I have TJ. TJ, honestly, man, it was an iffy week. Deontay and your defense were really the only reason this game was close. They were responsible for 41% of your fantasy points last week. And how often is a defense going to have 26 points on fantasy football? I mean, they had 5 turnovers, a blocked kick, and a touchdown. Like that's not going to happen every week. It doesn't matter what defense it is. And you're going to need more from other guys, especially Kamara and Etienne. Wow, that was terrible. Etienne. But, I mean, they've got it, especially with the running backs being so valuable, you're going to have to try to see more from them. Kirk didn't have a bad week. He actually looked really good in Jacksonville. I'd like to see, that was great. Didn't need a touchdown to do it, but how often is he going to have 117 yards off 6 receptions? That's the question. Freiermuth looks solid. I mean, that's another good addition, and I was maybe wrong there, but it's one of those things, it's the first week. I didn't really believe in Pittsburgh offense to begin the year. I still kind of don't, so that's going to be one interesting one to watch. Mike Williams, he struggled. There's no other way about it. He has to play better for you to have a chance to win, especially if you're going to put him at any one of your starting wide receiver spots. Number 11, I have Scott. Christian McCaffrey and Debo's, their touchdowns really honestly saved their fantasy value last week. They both just did not play very well. The touchdowns are really what just saved them, but McCaffrey's 14 touches are gonna be higher. They've got to be higher if you're gonna ask more of him. I mean, if he's gonna be what you want him to be and be that humongous piece for your team, he's got to get more than 14 touches a game. There's no other way about it. Debo, he can't go 2 for 8 receptions. He was throwing the ball 8 times and only had 2 catches. If he's going to be your wide receiver 1, he's got to have more than 2 catches. And he's going to have more than 8 targets. Or if he's going to get those 8 targets, he's got to catch every single one of them. But Kyler had a good game. You'd like to see higher passing yard numbers from him because those touchdowns, they're just going to fluctuate week to week. And if you take away those touchdowns, he didn't have a good week. So you'd like to see more consistency with the passing yards because those will come, and those should be consistent. Leonard Fournette looked great. The fact that he had 15 points, ran for the ball for 127 yards, and didn't touch the end zone, that might be a little bit of a scary side that he didn't see pay dirt, but the 127 yards, that's something to be promising about. Michael Thomas, man, I was watching the game with Rob and Jack at Buffalo Wild Wings. Michael Thomas, especially that second half when New Orleans was mounting that comeback, it felt like every ball in the red zone was going to Michael Thomas. Every time they needed a big play, they're throwing it to Michael Thomas. He had a good week. And honestly, we were sitting there going, man, and it's almost like he's demanding the ball. He's forcing his way to make Winston throw him the football. And that should be something you should watch. I don't expect him to be on your bench this week. So if you don't start him, that's a you decision, not a me decision. At number 10, I have Tommy. Listen, Tommy, Lamar Jackson, he had a solid game. He really did. He looked good. The problem is it's the 6 carries for 17 yards. We all know Jackson is dynamic in the run game. You want to see more from him there. He can't have 6 carries and only end up with 17 yards. If he's going to run the ball 6 times, he's got to have a higher yard number because passing yards, that's his weak spot. He had a great game this week, but he also played the Jets defense. So what happens when he gets against a good defense? You want to see that dual threatness that makes him such a sought-after quarterback. Pittman had a fantastic game, and I think this is going to be a consistent thing. Indy still doesn't have a true number two wide receiver, and it's a wide receiver by committee kind of thing, but Pittman's the obvious number 1, and I think they're going to try to put a more focus on passing the ball. They can't turn around and hand the ball off 30 times a game to Jonathan Taylor. I wish they could, but that's going to lead to injury. That's not realistic for them to win games. They're going to have to throw the ball, and that's why they got Matt Ryan. They thought he was a little more consistent than Carson Wentz. and there's nobody really consistently to throw to besides Michael Pittman. So he looks like he's set up for a humongous season. Ezekiel Elliott, Breece Hall, and Devin Singletary did exactly like I predicted they would do. They combined for 123 yards on 24 carries. That's about 5 yards a carry. That's not bad. But you split that up amongst 3 running backs, and that's ridiculous. Hall's 6 receptions helped hide his terrible run stat line and his fumble. But once again, 3 guys can't have 100 yards total. They've got to. If those are going to be your 3 running backs, they have to have more yards combined as a group. Or one guy is going to have a big week every week and have huge numbers. Or you're going to end up having to be touchdown dependent. And that's just not something you want to have. That's why you ended up losing. CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, and Zach Ertz all had average to below average weeks. You'd like to see a little more from CeeDee. Obviously, the 2 receptions was not good. But overall, that offense came out flat. It's a question, though, because now Dak's hurt. Is CeeDee not as valuable because they're going to take a downgrade at quarterback no matter where they go, whether it's in the organization or outside the organization. So you expect Keenan Allen to be a little more consistent. I think Herbert's just trying to throw the ball all over the place, and he's trying to show everybody that he doesn't need a go-to guy. But eventually, Allen will get more touches. Ertz's touchdown was great, but the 2 receptions, that's not going to work for him. You got to see a higher number if he's going to be your starting tight end. Overall, it was just a slow start for you week 1. Hopefully it picks up. At number 9, I have myself. Look, there is no other way to say it. Justin Herbert looks fantastic. He looked fantastic last week. I've loved him out of college, and I will continue to stand by that. He is a freak of nature at quarterback. He is so calm and collected, and he just slings it around all over the place. The problem is, outside of Herbert, you had average weeks across the board. Eckler and Cook were okay. They didn't get a touchdown, so that hurt their stat line, but they both showed somewhat of promise. But with where you picked, with you keeping Eckler and having Cook as your first-round pick, you expect more from them. We talked about how they're supposed to be the best 1-2 running back combo in the league, is what I said, and I can't stand by that now. They have to show better if they're going to be that. Brandon Cooks had a good game. Didn't even get a touchdown. And I think that's going to be a thing. Houston's going to get in these shootout games because they're either going to play behind or they're going to have to try to build this huge lead because their defense is just not where it's supposed to be. And those 15-point games, those are good. Allen Robinson disappeared. Darren Waller had a good game. I'd like to see a touchdown there eventually. But if that's him without a touchdown, I'll take the 11 points. Cordell Patterson, man, he is – can he do it again is the question. He is dynamic in both the run and the pass game. You'd like to see more than 3 receptions because you don't realistically expect him to run the ball for 120 yards every game. His success is the availability to be effective in both, and if he can't be effective in the pass game, he's going to be a lower-level flex piece. As for your bench, nobody really impressed you enough. Nobody. Honestly, they were just a meddling week, and that's why you ended up losing. At number 8, I have Jack. Jack, listen, man. This is going to sound weird, but even though you won, you're at 8 because I feel like your win was like it wasn't like a true proven win. Rodgers came out flat last week. There's no other way to say it. No other way. But that might be just an outlier. It might not, but it has to be something that you have to watch. And you gave up Metcalf for him, who is supposed to be one of the better wide receivers in the league, and he'll be the number 1 in Seattle. So you expect more out of someone that you traded for. Edwards and Kupp, man, looked fantastic. Cooper Kupp is just, God, he is the best receiver in football, and it's not even close. He finds a way to just catch the ball. It doesn't matter where they throw it to. Throw it to Cooper, he'll catch it. Amari Cooper, though, produced as pretty much as I expected. He's the number 1 in a run-heavy offense. He didn't do much. That's no other way to say that. Hawkinson looked okay. You'd like to see a little more production, especially in a high-scoring game. You'd like to see more out of that. The Naji Harris thing is interesting because he has that questionable tag sitting next to him right now. He's supposed to be your running back one, but with a limited participant, that's got to be something you watch. T. Higgins left his game with an injury. That needs to be monitored also. Overall, not a bad week. I just have you at 8 because I just think that was it was more of a fact of the other guy lost. You didn't really beat him. And if it wasn't for 2 guys, you would be in the loss column. At number 7, I have Squidney tentacles. For Sydney, listen. Once again, you got to pump the brakes on Tua, man. Yes, he had a good game. Yes, he won. But he had 270 yards and a touchdown. That's not productive. That's a quarterback 19-20 kind of value. Honestly, I think he's rated at quarterback 20 now, 20 whatever it is. You want to see more out of that. He's quarterback 21. That's good game. They won, fantastic, but he's got to be more productive. Saquon had a fantastic game. Outside of that, Waddle and Hill both had good games, and with that, you're going to double down on points every single time. But here's the interesting part. Like we said, Bill Belichick is now 9-14 as the Patriots head coach when they play in Miami. He has a losing record. The greatest coach in NFL history has a losing record against a team when they play there. That should tell you something if 90% of your team is that team. That's great to play against them, but the rest of the way, maybe it's an outlier kind of thing. And listen, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were responsible for 60% of Tua's yards and 51% of his attempts. So that's a high number. I don't expect that to be common trend. I don't expect those two to be responsible for 60% of Tua's passing yards and 51% of his targets. That seems unrealistic. That seems a little extra. I may be wrong, but that's something you're going to have to watch week to week. At number 6, I have Lucas. Man, Josh freaking Allen. He just keeps showing everybody why in the world the teams pass him up. He had a fantastic week, even though he still had 2 turnovers. He was productive in the air and on the ground. He showed he didn't need touchdowns to be productive, but he used them to elevate himself into the top of the quarterback 2 for the week. Mahomes was the only person I think had a better week. Deandre Swift came out strong against the Eagles in both the run and the passing game. The important thing to look at here, though, is Jamal Williams got 2 one-yard touchdown runs, right, for Detroit. Maybe that's because Detroit doesn't want to use Swift in the red zone. Maybe it's because they want to use Williams in the red zone. I don't know what it is. That's something you have to watch, though, because that's 2 touchdowns that could have been added to Swift's stat line. Not like it made a difference. He still had a fantastic week, but that's huge as we look longer into the season because those are touchdowns that might be taken away from him. Thielen, Smith, and Renfro all had below average to terrible weeks, which is that's why you sit in the loss column. Swift had a great week, but your receivers just disappeared outside of Scary Terry, and that's why you lost. That's plain and simple. You got to one guy can't win you a fantasy week, and that's pretty much the only reason why you lost. Terry McLaurin's week was touchdown dependent. Not a good sign considering how all over the place his quarterback is. Wentz had a great week this week. Talk to me again next week. So, he can't be touchdown dependent. You have to see consistency from everybody else too. At number 5, I have Eric. Eric, you had a good week. You won. Both Mixon and Schultz had great games for their respective positions, even without touchdowns on their scoreboard. That is promising for both considering how important they will be on their team's respective offensive games. I think Schultz might take a dip with Dak being out, but Mixon's going to continue to be important because I feel like they're going to try to take pressure off of Burrow by giving him the ball more. Mitchell was unproductive, and to make matters worse, he sprained his MCL. That's going to be 2 months, about 8 weeks-ish, sitting on the injury list. And no one on your bench performed enough to give you a vote of confidence to start them at flex to replace him. So it hurts a little more. Brady didn't look bad, 212 and a touchdown, but with how close you lost this week, it hurts a little more knowing Brady could have played better. Brady came out kind of flat, and with as close of a game it was, you expect more out of him. Jefferson, man, he just as good, like, great week, just like Cooper Kupp. 9 catches, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And if the Cousins-Jefferson's thing is something you're going to look, I think you're going to take a long look at it. I would not be surprised if we looked up and you're starting Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson together, because that's, like I said, it's the same thing with the Burrow Chase thing for Drew. That's just double points. You get to double down on a weekly basis. And with both of them playing Philadelphia this week, who gave up 35 points to the Lions, that could be possibly a huge week for you. At number 4, I have Rob. Rob, great week, man. Hurts looked good. Now, air quotes, against the Lions. He showed his versatility in both the pass and run games. He went for 243 in the air and 90 on the ground. The problem is he only had 1 touchdown to show for it. That's great. It means he doesn't need touchdowns to be productive. But on weeks where you're going to need some touchdowns, it's kind of scary to see they only had 1. Chubb had a great game, even without a touchdown. The 22 carries shows that he is the workhorse on the offense for Cleveland. Once again, but it's this, touchdowns are what make or break weeks. You'd like to see a few more. The good news is you didn't need it this week. Might need it again next week. Kelsey, Brown, Bateman, and Sanders had great weeks, and none of them were touchdown dependent. This means they would have had even better weeks. They would have had good weeks without the touchdowns, but the fact that they had a touchdown just makes it even better. It's like, that's what really put you above the top for a win. Don't worry, I got you. The city of Los Angeles has put out an APB for Cam Akers because he has disappeared. Missing in action, Cam Akers. But once again, I told you, it's a question mark to look at there. I think Henderson, they talked about how they're going to be 1A and 1B. I think Henderson's the guy. I do. That might be my Memphis bias, and let's be honest, it is. But Akers disappeared completely, and that hurt. That hurt for you. It didn't matter at the end, but man, you got to watch that. That's got to be something you got to look for, because if that happens again, then you're really in trouble. At number 3, I had Nate. Oh God. Why must you make me suffer? Why must you prove me wrong every time? Jonathan Taylor and Antonio Gibson looked fantastic in their own respective ways. Taylor did it on the ground, which is common for him. He's going to run the ball 20-something times, and he's going to continue to be productive. So the fact that you see that stat line early on is a good sign for you. The other thing is Gibson looked good in both the pass and the run games, which is common for him. He started it. He was a receiver at Memphis. He came to Washington and transformed. Now they moved him to running back, but the fact that he was productive in both is not something that's like, oh, that was an outlier. That's not going to be a common thing for him. The fact that he was good in the run and the pass game shows you that that's something that he does often. That's not this random just outlier, right? This is going to be a common trend thing. I think it is. Taylor's going to continue to be Jonathan Taylor. Gibson, I think, is going to be a top 20 running back again. So that's just a deadly combo for you. Russell Wilson looked good, but the 1 touchdown hurt his overall point total. Not that it didn't matter, considering you still won, but it could have hurt you if you didn't. Like, that's, once again, it's one of those things where you want to see more touchdowns. Touchdowns win this league, win games. And when you look up and your quarterback, who's supposed to be your top point getter, only gets 1, that's kind of scary. Mike Evans, Andrews, and Smith-Schuster all had solid weeks to help create a solid overall team win. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Your team looked good week 1. Can you do it week 2? I'd like to see you do it. I think you have the potential to. At number 2, I put Drew. Man, Joe Burrow. Lord have mercy. Let's start with him. We'll start with him, and then we'll go to the rest of the team. Burrow started off slow, like terribly slow. But by starting off slow and getting down early, it allowed him to throw the ball more, which helped them get higher points. His 4 interceptions was terrible. Then you add the fumble on top of that, it just made a problem. 5 turnovers is way, way, way too much. But he did throw for 338 yards and 2 touchdowns, which saved you. And it led to a pretty okay week. It wasn't a great week. You'd like to see a little more. The interceptions is really what made the difference. But once again, a pretty solid week. Derrick Henry came out flat. Maybe it's because it's his first game back from injury after being like completely healed, no rushing, to get back kind of thing, but he came out flat. 82 yards, not bad, but for him, that we expect more. So that's going to be something that's going to be very interesting to watch this week, especially with him going against Buffalo, which is a good defense. So keep an eye out on that one. Williams looked great. His 11 receptions really helped hide that fumble. And if that's something that's going to be common trend for him, he'll be a top 10 running back by the end of the season. 11 receptions. That's 11 points in our league. That alone, whether he no rushes, no yards, 11 receptions, 0 yards, no touchdown, that's still 11 points, and that's a solid week. And I'd take 11 points from a position player every single time, right? So the fact that you add that on top of his 65 receiving yards, his 43 rushing yards, it's overall just a fantastic week for him. Deontay Johnson and Marquis Brown both look good, but it's still a question mark. Deontay Johnson, I don't trust that Pittsburgh offense yet. I still don't, and it's a question of, if they stay consistent, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong, but it's a consistency question for me. Marquis Brown, yeah, the touchdown looked good. Helped with the point total, but you want to see a higher production early because Hopkins is eventually coming back, and he'll be the guy that they go to. And Brown will fall down the list a little bit. He's the theoretical one right now in Arizona, so you'd like to see more than just 4 catches. But the reason you won this week was Jamar Chase catching everything Joe Burrow threw his direction. Like I said at the beginning of the year, it's Burrow, Chase, or bust for you. That connection is going to make or break games, and this week it made the game. You'll double down on points every single time Jamar Chase catches the ball. If he catches a 1-yard pass, he'll get 1.1, and Burrow will get whatever the equivalent is in quarterback. So every time Burrow goes there, you'll get the double the points. So the fact that he went 10 receptions, 129 yards, and a touchdown, you double that, and that's not even fair. That's why you won at my expense. Number 1, if you haven't figured it out yet, it's Landon. Landon came out strong, man. Not only is he leading the league in points scored this week after 1 week, he just looked fantastic. He had Mahomes, who threw for 360 yards and 5 touchdowns to be quarterback 1 for the week. Diggs had 8 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown to be wide receiver number 6 on the week. Judy had 4 receptions, 102, and a touchdown to be wide receiver 12 on the week. Amon St. Brown had 8 for 64 and a touchdown. That put him at wide receiver 11. So the fact that you have 3 top 12 wide receivers and the top quarterback after week 1 shows you that you had a humongous week. The red flag, though, that really might come into question is the Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs situation. Both of them scored under 11 points. And for that to be your running back situation, if you have weeks like this, won't matter. But how often are we going to look up and say your defense put up 18 points? Or how often are we going to look up and say your 3 wide receivers combined for 60-something points? That's not going to be an every week thing. You're going to need more from them. And if you don't get more from them, it might come up a little short. The good news is on your bench, Michael Carter had 17 points. And it wasn't just by running the football. He had 7 receptions. And if that's a common trend thing, he'll be one of the guys that you can flip in for Jones on a bad week or flip in for Jacobs on a bad week. So this is just one thing after the other with you. You had a fantastic week pretty much from everybody but about 3 guys. And those 3 guys, maybe that's a common trend thing. Maybe it's not. I don't think it is. But you led the league in points. You dominated. And you looked promising. There's no other way to say it. You were the best team this week, so you're number 1 overall. As always, it was fun. If you have a problem with it, let me know. You'll probably have a problem with it. It was a little rushed. I am sitting here in my office doing it right now, so I apologize if I didn't cover your team completely. As always, you can join me and we can discuss even farther in length about why I have no idea what I'm talking about. But to do that, you actually have to come in. So join me. Until then, it's been fun. Good luck to all the teams this week. Talk to you next week. Y'all have a good one. Peace.